For the lovely and talented Piers Morgan. Thank you, sir.
Hey, chaps.
What's
Take
up,
a
Piers
seat.
Morgan?
Chaps. We're chaps today.
Look at what's going on behind you. That's $5,000 worth of quarters on the floor, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that my fee?
Yes.
Well,
there you
it's
go.
not your fee. You had to take care of some business before you came in here today.
I was just chewing Howard Stern a new one. Nothing, no biggie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I heard
what
you
was the
guys were
problem there?
buddies over there.
We were pretty pally over there.
we
He
just
was
got-
like the warm up for the main grilling here.
We got reports that you guys were buddy over there.
It was actually surprisingly friendly. Yeah.
You got to go back on that show.
Well, I said to him, what we should really have is me, Howard, and Alex Jones. You know, the disc
God.
jockey.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, 1776 is where you're going back to.
That's what we need to do. You know, I saw that one. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Debate you guys had.
It was really calm. It was really respectable back and forth.
It was great. It was great TV. I want you back in America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
for
thank
real.
you.
Because I don't
Thank
watch
you.
the show anymore, and because you were way better.
I
That is a
I
fact.
ran out of words to tell people they suck.
Right. You had it with that show?
Well, I did 6 seasons in America, and I did 4 of the Britain's Got Talent. And it just comes a point when you can't think of anything new to say about somebody who's murdering, Raise Me Up.
Right.
You try, but you raise me up. For God's sake, give me strength,
Piers. Now, we had a little thing.
Yes.
And we're going to have some more things today.
Good.
I actually like watching you. I really do. Because you do fucking tackle some tough fucking subjects. But it frustrated me that you don't acknowledge the media and their responsibility in these school shootings.
Yeah, but I do. I do acknowledge some responsibility.
Have you talked about it on the show?
Yeah, but see, I don't agree with your central premise, because if you take your argument to its logical extension, then the media would never cover any mass shootings at all.
That is a problem, and I agree with you there.
And you can't have a situation where you just simply don't report bad news because you think it may encourage other people to do it.
But I think it's the way you guys do it, and show his face a million fucking times, and there's a slick graphic, and it's the music, and the guy looks almost like a rock star when you see that on TV.
I think it's an inescapable way of doing these stories. You can't ignore the person that's committed the crime.
Right.
Can I
If
ask
you go
why
back through
it's-
history,
why is it inescapable, though? Like what Opie just said, not to interrupt
Because
you,
I
but
think
why
it's
is
the
it
way it's
inescapable?
pushed forward, I think, is where we have the problem.
Here's the thing. It's funny. Anderson Cooper at CNN would agree with you. He often doesn't like naming the names of the shooters. I have a different view. I come from a British newspaper background. I think that you need to find out every spit and cough of these people. I want to know everything about them. I want to know what triggered the thought process to go into a school or a movie theater and slaughter dozens of Americans. And if it means you have to show their picture repeatedly so that some people watch and go, I know that guy. I remember him. I remember that guy in an incident on the beach in 1986. It's worth it. Now, it's a necessary evil, in my view.
Do you think that'll push other people to do exactly the same thing? Though?
You never know. I
The
mean,
FBI profilers have said yes.
There's
and they
certainly
said yes.
you cannot rule out that there is a danger of copycats doing.
But I would love
that.
to I would love for you to have a discussion
We're
on this on
having
your
it.
show.
That's why I'm here.
But on your show,
I came into the Lion's Den to have this very debate.
we're easy.
The
Actually,
press really does refuse to truly, like you're acknowledging it because you're smart and we're talking about it, but to them the payoff on people watching what they're doing is much more important than the absolute risk of it encouraging other people, because they do that for
that's
that
fine.
reason.
It's easy to say, but what would you do if you were covering on CNN? What would you cover?
What I cover is like when there's something like a shooting. It's absolute news. You have to cover it. It's a real story.
And you name the guy?
Of course you do.
You show his picture?
Maybe for the first day, sure, because it is a part of the story. We're not talking about don't cover.
So what don't you do?
It's when it begins to go into the second day where it's all that nonsense about why did he do it. He did it because I'll tell you why. He's crazy.
So
that's why he did it. I'm not interested. Do you let me ask you.
You're not interested in finding out why people commit mass
When
shootings?
there's a rape.
Maybe that's why there are so many in this
Hold on,
country.
let me ask you.
Not
Piers,
enough people do care enough.
When there's a rape, do you guys say, why did he do it? You don't care why he did it. He's a rapist and he's an animal. Nobody says about a rapist or a child molester, why did he molest those children?
No, I can't have this, because here's why I can't have this. Because sometimes the trigger may be violent video games, right? Which 99% of the people that play them, and we know this from statistical evidence, it has no problem or no effect on. But no one can tell me, given the pattern of mass shooters in America in recent years, that there is negligible or zero connection between somebody like Adam Lanza sitting in his little lair, watching, these horrific violent video games all day long, anesthetizing himself to mass killings. It has to play a tiny part. I don't think it's a big part.
Okay, let me go with that.
I think it doesn't
Hold on,
help.
hold on.
You see, he might be connected to violent videos and some form of mental health problem. The next mass shooter might have an entirely different thing. He may have been abused as a kid or whatever it may be. You have to get to the bottom of what triggers each of these mass shootings.
All right, but the violent video game angle, okay? What is it about?
Do you think it has zero impact, seriously, to anybody in the world?
I don't know if it's zero, but I think it's so minuscule that it's not even on a fucking. It should be on anyone's radar. Hold on. I got a second point, and then let's go with this. So the rest of the world plays violent video games. So why aren't they in the same situation with all these mass shootings?
Well, the rest of the world doesn't have the gun availability that America has.
Now you got him.
Well, they don't.
Now you got his
attention.
They do.
Well, there are some countries that have a lot more guns than the United States.
Really, name one.
Afghanistan
has more guns than the United States of America.
Absolutely.
Do you know how many guns you've got in America?
Yeah, probably 1 or 2 for 1.5.
Do you know the total?
Person. 1.5 per person.
You've got 305 million guns in circulation, according to latest reports. Do you think there's more than that in Afghanistan?
Probably.
Have you ever been to Afghanistan?
No.
Let me reassure you.
I know there's a war going on there.
There are not 300 million guns in Afghanistan. Let me reassure you, or anywhere near it. America has the highest volume of guns of any country in the world. And let me spell out some more statistics for you about guns. Yeah. I come from Great Britain. As you know, right? My accent has annoyed you numerous times. But let me tell you this, though. Here's where I have a real issue with the gun rights people. Well, let's get into per capita. The British population is about 60 million. America's is 315 million. Okay, so you're about 5 times the size of my country. We have 35 gun murders a year. You have 11 to 12,000. Now, unless I'm wrong, 5 times 35 is not 11 to 12,000, right?
I understand.
So do you accept as a country that you have an unacceptable level of gun death and violence?
It's a lot of gun death and,
is it unacceptable?
And violence.
To you?
Well, any gun death would be unnecessary or unjust gun death.
So what do you do about it?
Would be. What do you do about it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should curtail some of the gang problems that make up more than half of those stats.
Do you think selling assault rifles in Walmart is a good idea?
Do you? Well, assault rifles aren't even used in most of the crimes that you're talking about.
Actually, they've been used in 95% of the mass shootings in America since I've been here.
There haven't been many mass shootings.
Mass shootings don't matter to you?
No, they do matter. But as far as statistics go,
Sandy Hook, AR-15. Aurora, AR-15. Personally. Why are they using AR-15s?
And emotionally, it's very... there's a lot of pressure on people to look at assault rifles like you are. But
why does a civilian need an assault rifle? Tell me.
Why do you think the police need them?
Because they're police.
Because they're police. That's not an answer.
Yeah, the police and military.
If I want to protect my home as good as the police need to protect themselves and the general public, why don't I have the right to do that?
Why don't you use tanks?
Because those are, you got to have some type of balance.
So you need restrictions.
There are restrictions,
right?
Piers.
Why are there restrictions? Because the Supreme Court said with the Second Amendment ruling in 2008 or 9, whenever it was, they said there needs to be reasonable restrictions, right? My argument is not about taking anybody's guns away.
Unreasonable.
I have never asked for any confiscation of any gun.
No,
right?
Confiscation is one thing.
Nor
elimination is another.
Let me finish.
Do you know I can't buy an AR-15 here in New York anymore?
Right, good.
I'm not allowed to. No, not good.
Why not good?
They took my guns away.
Why do you want an AR-15
Because, like
rifle?
I said, I want to protect my house as well as the police protect their jurisdiction, their precincts, the people that they protect. When they show up to a shooter in a school, let's say, they show up. They don't show up with a pistol, a 9mm. They show up with an assault rifle, as they're called.
How would you protect your schools?
How would I protect my schools? I think armed citizens are a great deterrent.
Every teacher?
To not every teacher. I think
how many would you arm?
I think in a school you would arm people that have gone through proper training and psychological profiling, much like a police officer would have to. That type of thing. But an armed citizenry.
Where would you put the guns?
You could put them on the teacher, a concealed. Carry
so wait a minute.
Weapon on
my child, I've got 4 kids. My youngest is nearly 2.
Sure.
When she goes to elementary school, I'm sending my child into an elementary school where half the teachers are wandering around packed with heat.
Not half the teachers. However many.
How many do you want?
However many are responsible and have taken whatever training they need to safely use a weapon.
What happens if they drop their gun and one of the children picks it up and shoots one of their other children?
Well, that's very irresponsible, I'd say. And that could happen with...
Do you know how many people accidentally shoot people in America every single day?
Yeah.
Do you know how many kids in the last 2 months alone have killed other kids because adults have been irresponsible?
It's less
you want to
than drown in backyard
adults.
Pools, Piers.
So
it's
what?
less.
It's just
so
dying.
What is what?
It's just less than dying.
You blow off other stats as so what, and then your stats are the important ones that
you
should be
want to
looked at.
liken the deaths in swimming pools from accidental drowning
I just want to say
to the deaths in schools from assault rifles.
You can't.
Are you really
not
being that facile?
Not assault rifles. First of all, let's separate the assault rifle, which is barely used in crimes.
Apart from the last 7 of 9 mass shootings in America.
Mass shootings. Add up the gang violence that has killed tens of thousands with handguns, illegal handguns in Chicago, Detroit, New York, L.A.
Massive problem, too.
Not massive problem, too. Much bigger problem than assault weapons in schools.
You may think that 20 kids being killed in elementary school
never said that,
is not as
Piers.
important as gang violence in Chicago.
Numbers,
I don't agree with you.
If we're talking numbers, let's take the cherubish faces out of the whole thing and just talk numbers.
No, let's keep the cherubic faces in this thing. Let me tell you why.
Why?
Let me explain.
And they're more important than the young black faces in inner cities that are being shot every weekend?
Now you're sounding ridiculous.
No, I'm not. I'm sounding like a logical human being.
Let's hear Piers out. Why don't you let me have my say about why I feel strongly about the mass shooting situation?
All right.
So in Britain in 1996, there was a massacre in Dunblane in Scotland. 16 5-year-old children were murdered by gunmen. As a result, Britain came together, left and right. It was never a partisan debate, never conservative v liberal over guns. The media came together, driven by the paper that I was editor-in-chief of. The public came together and said, we cannot have this happening in our society. We banned all assault rifles, all assault weapons, all handguns. Since that day, there hasn't been a single school shooting in Britain. Since that day, there's been one mass shooting by some loner who killed about 8-9 people. Other than that, 0 mass shootings. We have 35 gun murders a day. You'll have that many today and tomorrow in America.
A year, you mean? A year.
You mean 35 a year. You have that many a day. Australia, the same year, 96, in Port Arthur in Tasmania, had a massacre, 36 people killed. And they also banned all assault weapons and numerous handguns. Mm-hmm. They haven't having had a series of mass shootings, they haven't had a single mass shooting since 96 in Australia.
No, but they have a lot of home invasions.
Here's my other point.
Yeah.
You look at Japan, Germany, Britain, Australia. You wouldn't find 4 countries which have a greater history of gun violence in the world than those 4 countries, right? Other than America. The only one of all those countries which has never dealt with gun violence is America. And in fact, it's getting worse because there are ever more guns in circulation. They're ever more powerful. They can kill ever more people in one go. And here's why I say that. The Sandy Hook shooting was the single worst shooting of people in a school in American history. The Aurora movie theater massacre was the single highest volume of people, Americans, hit by one person in a civilian mass shooting in American history. These things are getting worse and bigger and the scale more dramatic. What will it take before eventually there can be a reasonable debate, and I mean reasonable, in America about how you try and reduce mass shootings, gang violence, and general accidental death by gun?
They're different subjects. You can't just blame
it all comes down to the gun.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Because in countries like Britain, Germany, Japan, and Australia, where they have basically removed guns, there is no gun crime and no gun death.
Britain, first of all, per capita, of course, we got to look at the population
difference. It's a fifth of the size of America.
I understand, but it has
So what do you mean per capita?
I'm saying per capita, it has a higher violent crime rate than the United States.
You really believe that?
Yes, I do. It's statistic.
You ever been to Britain?
No, I haven't, but I know statistically...
You believe Britain is a more violent country than America?
More violent crimes. Assaults.
This is the problem with the debate in this country. It's so ludicrous. Of course it doesn't.
It's not ludicrous. And the bottom line of the whole thing is...
I don't think you even believe that.
Well, what are the stats? You're both saying ludicrous. What are the stats? Does anybody know?
I don't have them off the top of my head.
Let me spell out for you about Britain. So it's in perspective. It's not about me telling Americans how to lead their lives. Britain has appalling records on things like teenage knife crime, right? Teenage obesity, underage pregnancies, general yobbery and disrespect and stuff like that. I feel very exercised about all those issues in my country. But the one thing we got right, and which I think is particularly relevant to America, is gun violence. And I say to you guys again, I don't want to grab anybody's gun. I don't want to take anybody's gun away. I'm talking about going forward. What type of guns do you think should come as they get ever more powerful and militarized? At what point does reasonable restrictions mean you can't go to a Walmart in many cities in America where I can't buy a Kinder Surprise egg because the little toys inside the chocolate may choke me? I can't buy 6 packets of Sudafed because I might be building some illegal pharmacy. I can't buy French cheese because of the bacterial threat to my life. But instead of those, I can buy an AR-15 assault rifle and then get on the internet, order 6,000 rounds of ammunition and go and shoot up a school or movie theater. At what point does America wake up and say we have to be doing more to protect lives? That's my only question.
We have to do more to weed out the people that are insane.
But you don't even allow background checks. The Senate refused to even pass background checks. 40% of all gun trades in America have no background check. That means you can be mentally insane and or criminal and buy any gun you like. Why would anyone be opposed to 100% universal background checks?
I don't think a lot of people are opposed. In New York,
no, 90% of Americans supported it. The Senate threw it out.
I have to go through background checks whenever I buy a weapon here in New York.
Why do you think gun crime in New York is plummeting to record lows?
Because the NYPD does a great job with the gangs around here, which is a huge problem.
I agree
with gun violence.
But Michael Bloomberg and Rudy Giuliani and other mayors in this city took it on head on. And Chicago's problem is as much to do with not as good law enforcement.
They're not enforcing the laws that are in place. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The laws that are in place should be taken care of. Going after legal, law-abiding gun owners in this country is not the thing to do. It's not going to help lower any crimes.
Well, of course it is.
No, it's not.
Let me give you an example of legal gun owners. Adam Lanza's mother was a legal gun.
The most irresponsible woman with her guns. With legally owning a gun comes great responsibility.
Right.
That's the thing. Education, training, things like that.
You know why she bought them?
You can't just...
You know why she had 6 weapons, including an AR-15?
I hear she was some type of a survivalist and liked having...
Doomsday prepper.
Not really. She was an NRA member, and she just believed that actually the NRA were right. If you arm yourself, you will protect yourself. Unfortunately, she had a crazed son with an addiction to violent video games, a loner, a misfit.
That's a little...
It may be of zero relevance, or maybe it's not. We don't actually know.
Piers, some nut could look at a Monet and think, I got to kill somebody now.
Yep.
It's because they're crazy. You can't look at the video game, at the hardware used, the gun, the this, the that. Let's look at the actual problems.
What happened after Sandy Hook in terms of gun sales in America?
Well, they skyrocketed.
Way up.
How do you feel about that?
Because people are afraid that their right to own these guns are going to be taken away.
What about the right of those children not to be murdered?
Well, exactly. Something has to be done about that.
What do you do, though? Because actually 3 things were proposed.
Well,
a new assault weapons ban, a ban on high-capacity clips that were over 10 bullets, right? And also universal background checks. All 3 of those things...
And you think that's going to eliminate school shootings?
I think it might help.
I don't think so.
All 3 of them got thrown out. So the reaction from America to the worst school shooting in its history, unlike in Britain where we banned all assault weapons and handguns, was 0. Not even background checks. In fact, the fastest selling weapon in America in the 4 months after Sandy Hook was the exact same AR-15 that Adam Lanza used to blow those kids' brains out.
Because we knew it was being taken away from us.
But what an astonishing reaction from the great superpower of the world.
Why not? Why wouldn't you, if you know they're going to be taken away and you want one to protect your life and your family's life and your house, as well as the police can, why wouldn't you want to get one before they're taken away, like they were in New York? Like they were in this state. You cannot buy one now because
Cuomo
made
New York a safer place.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
Assault weapons. Look at the crime stats for assault weapons.
Look at the murder rates in New York.
What about
Look at the gun crime in New York.
Stop and frisk help with that too. Stop and frisk help with that too.
Exactly.
Which is going away.
But
in New York.
To take the right of a New York American citizen to take his right
to have an AR-15,
to have an AR-15, a weapon that is preferred to.
I say
the preferred
balls to that right. The founding fathers.
You can't say balls to that right.
I just said it, and here's why. The founding fathers never intended civilians to wander around the streets of America carrying AR-15 killing
How
machines.
Do you know what they meant?
You think they did?
I think they saw weaponry advance in their lifetime enough to know that it was going to keep happening, and they didn't put a clause in there that said,
there should be restrictions.
A musket was the cutting-edge weapon of the time.
How long did it take to reload a musket?
They didn't relegate, but they
Do you know how long?
It took a long time.
How long?
At least a minute, right?
Nah, somebody could do it pretty fast. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Imagine how many people you would kill in a movie theater if you had to reload per bullet 30 seconds.
But do you understand? They knew that technology was going to advance. They didn't put anything in the Second Amendment that says up until this point of technology.
Are you aware of the history of how the Second Amendment was interpreted legally in this country?
Oh, yes, believe me.
So you're aware that for 95% of its lifespan, the interpretation was not that an individual had the right to bear arms, but that an individual had the right to bear arms as part of a well-regulated militia. And you're aware of how the NRA hijacked the meaning of that in the mid-70s. Reagan became president. He was an NRA supporter. And as a result of that pressure, they began to pile on. The Supreme Court eventually said, a few years ago, okay, it actually relates to individuals. It was hijacked by the NRA. Who supports the NRA?
Hijacked
well, it was. If you know the history, it was.
No, because the history.
Who supports the NRA?
Who supports the NRA?
Who pays their money?
Legal gun owners.
No.
Yeah.
Well, partly as subscriptions. Who gives them the bulk? Who gives them the bulk of their money to go after politicians who support gun safety?
The gay community,
lobby groups for.
No, you're missing their number one funders.
Who is it, Piers?
The gun manufacturers.
Oh, sure. Why wouldn't they? They're in business.
Exactly. So when Wayne LaPierre goes out after Sandy Hook and says, if only every teacher had been armed, if only everyone had an AR-15, guess what happens? They sell more guns.
You don't think other organizations get money from companies?
How do you feel about the NRA? How do you feel about the NRA targeting politicians who support reasonable gun control?
It's never reasonable gun control, first of all. If they're targeting a politician, it's unreasonable gun control.
Removing any kind of assault weapon from civilian hands is not reasonable to you.
I don't want that, no.
Really?
No, I like the idea that I am able to have the same weapon that the police have.
But you don't, though, because they're allowed fully automatic machine guns.
Absolutely.
So why are they allowed those and you're not, and you don't care?
Again, there's a restriction on that.
But you're happy with that restriction?
No, I'm
You're just
actually
not happy with the other restriction.
I would like to have a fully automatic
You'd like a fully automatic machine gun?
Yes, I would.
And you'd be comfortable with everybody else in America having one too?
If they are trained and go through a background check, sure.
And mentally sane or criminal?
That's kind of hard to. How
are you going to know if they're not having background checks?
Right. Who is going to?
How are you going to know without background checks?
Well, I like background checks. I said that.
You want universal background checks?
The NRA fought them, though. That bugs me. The NRA.
Yeah, I know. I don't agree with everything the NRA does. I'm not going to sit here and agree with everything.
Let's try and get to it. This is a good debate. Let's get to a point of consensus. You would agree with universal background checks?
Yeah, I always said background checks are fine. I like that.
What do you feel about the need to have magazines that have more than 10 bullets?
I like a 30-round mag.
Why?
Well, again, the police don't go out with 10-round mags.
Why would you need one?
You know what? For home protection, I like the idea.
You think 10 people are going to come?
You're not going to hit everybody with it, and it sounds ridiculous.
You go hunting with, say, a 100-bullet magazine?
I'm not a hunter.
But should hunters use 100-bullet magazines to shoot
if you're
deer?
Going out hunting, it's a whole different thing than home protection.
That's not hunting, though, is it?
No, I'm not.
Why can't a simple handgun be used at home to protect a family? As I've always said in America, with the volume of guns you have here, I've never been against that.
It could be.
I'm known as this great gun grabber from Britain. I've always respected the rights of an American to have a simple handgun at home if they absolutely needed it. But here's the other thing. Wherever there are guns in homes in America, there is a higher rate of gun suicide.
Well, of course, because there's a gun in the home.
That's my point.
Yeah, well, I would say this, too. If you go out in the ocean, you have a much better chance of being bitten by a shark than if you're on land. It's one of those statements that, of course, if there's a gun in the house, there's going to be a better chance of somebody getting hurt with it accidentally or using it in a suicide. But many more crimes have been thwarted. That's rarely ever reported.
Do you believe that, given that there are more and more guns being sold in America, do you believe that within 10 years, if you have another 100 million firearms in circulation, the gun murder rate will be up or down?
I think that has to do with more to do with society than it does.
What do you feel?
Hardware.
What does your gut feeling tell you?
My gut feeling tells me, with all the pandering that goes on in this country, especially with the issues of gang violence, that if it keeps on track, the murder rate would go up. But it has nothing to do with the hardware. Has nothing to do with the tool being used. It has to do with a violent society.
On the same day as Sandy Hook in China, a lunatic went crazy with a knife in a school.
Right.
He stabbed 20 children. You know the difference?
Yeah, like one kid died.
No, they all lived.
Oh, they all lived? Yeah, I knew it was a much lower than...
So when you say you can't blame the gun or the hardware, actually you can, because in China, those guns are banned.
You can't blame the gun for the lunacy that makes these people do these horrible acts.
Why wouldn't you, with every fibre... Are you a parent?
No.
Right. Any parents here? Okay. I've got 4 kids. Why wouldn't you? How many kids have you got?
2.
Right. Why wouldn't you want to try and make it as difficult as possible for the Adam Lanzers, the slightly crazy people who, by the way, have not had direct treatment for mental health issues, so haven't been flagged up on the system?
There were red flags on him.
There were red flags, but they weren't on paper. He hadn't been into a mental institution.
That same point, can I just jump in? That same point you're making, which is a valid point about why wouldn't you do this for your own children? The press should take that attitude when it comes to doing things that are encouraging future shooters, like covering it the way you guys do.
Yeah, but you're talking about chicken and the egg. You can blame the press afterwards.
You can blame the violent video games afterwards. I'm not trying to. You guys are talking about guns. I'm only saying the press has been reprehensible, and as passionately as you discuss violent video games, you should be talking about the press and the way they have pushed this forward.
My kids play some of these games, Grand Theft Auto and whatever, right? I don't have an issue with violent video games if they are, as they are, hugely popular. Whatever. I have an issue where I see a pattern of these young. At the moment in America, you have a pattern of young white mass shooters in their early 20s, loners, misfits, who happen to be always playing a lot of violent video games.
A drop in the bucket compared to black gang members
I agree,
in
but they are
cities.
completely different issues to tackle, and they should be tackled in different ways.
No, because they're not completely different issues with gun grabbers.
Take Chicago.
They want to take lump them together as gun violence and take guns away from legal gun owners.
And
by the way, you have kids and stuff, and you like them protected. Do you have that armed security that goes around your neighborhood?
No.
What was that sign on your supposedly on your front lawn?
It was a link to the Beverly Hills Police Department.
Oh,
I presume you don't have a problem with the Beverly Hills being armed?
No, being armed.
Nor do I.
That's fine.
Nor do I.
You've never been protected by an armed guard?
No.
Anywhere you've gone?
No.
Oh, good man.
The gun pro-rights people came to my house and they photographed that sign and they said I had private armed security. It was a link to the Beverly Hills Police Department.
Oh, it was?
I presume nobody here would disagree with my right to be protected by the police.
That is your right.
Well, do you live in Beverly Hills?
Or indeed the military. And when it comes to the military, my brother's a British Army colonel. My uncle was a British Army major. My grandfather was a commando. I'm not a pacifist. I understand the power of guns. I personally believe that military weapons belong in the hands of the military or the police.
Well, yeah, but that's what's happening here in this country. A semi-automatic weapon is not a military weapon. It's a gun.
You want the right to have a machine gun?
An AR-15.
You want the right to a machine gun?
Sure.
Which means if you have it, everybody else should have one too.
I would love to be able
to... Or is it just you that's going to have
jump through whatever hoops it would take legally to obtain it. And I know you can in some places, Vegas, for one, you could shoot...
Where do you think all the gangbangers get their guns in Chicago, where there's actually reasonably tough gun control?
A lot of them are stolen, and a lot of them are shipped in.
50% of all the guns that the police recovered in Chicago came from neighboring states.
Yeah, and the second you bring it over the state line, it's an illegal gun. It becomes an illegal gun. So we're supposed to take it away from the legal gun owners because criminals are taking them across the lines? Like prohibition.
Let me ask you.
Prohibition,
you're
Piers,
being so
it
facile.
wouldn't work. I am not. I'm saying that when they outlawed booze, poured into the country.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Not a single person, me, President Obama, Michael Bloomberg, Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Naming all the good ones.
Not a single of the gun grabbers has ever actually asked for a single gun to be taken away.
Because they knew it wouldn't work. They've tried. They would love it.
Wait a minute.
They would love to.
My point is you can't keep saying they're gun grabbing. They're not taking anybody's gun, right?
I would love
we are talking about the type of firearms that should be readily available going
right now. You can't. They took them.
How many guns, if you took in every single one of President Obama's assault weapons ban proposals, how many types of firearm in America would still be legally available?
Probably quite a few.
How many?
I don't know.
You're an American. I'm British. Come on. How many in your country?
Why would I know
Why would you know more about gun rules in your country than me? I don't know.
That's not a gun rule. This is a weird stat that you know that I don't know.
I think it's weird to know.
Try to make it sound like I'm not educated. How many guns would be left if you took all the assault weapons? It's a fucking math problem. I don't know the numbers.
Let me ask you to try and hazard a guess at how many different types of firearm would be legally available
50
in
billion
America.
Gazillion, Piers.
No, be serious.
I know the answer, but I'm not going to blow it.
Shut up.
Do you know?
I have no idea.
Have a guess.
2.
No, a lot. I'm sure.
How many? Have a guess.
5,000.
If you took all the what? What's the question? I'm sure.
If you stripped out every single assault weapon that President Obama, under the plan that was put forward, wanted to remove from civilian circulation going forward. Not confiscation,
he's trying to get you to say something, and then it's going to be this huge number that so many guns are still going to be available, even if you take the assault weapon. Well, so what?
Well, what is the percentage?
Yeah,
so what?
Have a guess.
How many are available now?
About 2,400, I think it is.
Okay, so I'm going to guess.
I would say
2,200.
It's about that, yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, you're basically talking 200 or 300 types of gun.
Why can't I purchase a semi-automatic weapon?
And these would be assault weapons.
Why can't I purchase a semi-automatic weapon with a 10-round magazine?
You've already said that.
I want one. I can't have one. I want a rocket ship too. I can't have one
because there are reasonable restrictions.
Yeah. And there are reasonable.
Have you fired an AR-15?
Sure.
Yeah?
I own 4 of them.
What is the difference?
You don't want to know how many guns he actually owns.
I don't mind if you have guns.
He has a lot of guns.
He drinks heavily as well.
And he kicks kittens.
Yeah.
No, I love my kitten.
Bad person.
I love my
Can I ask Piers something?
Sure.
As quote an outsider, what do you think America's obsession is with guns?
I think it's very cultural. I mean, you look at someone like Canada, which has a very high volume of guns, but has nothing like your gun crime rate. There's something about the culture of gun violence in America.
But what is it?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the cultural battles with my own homeland in the 18th century, where you had to fight off enemy territory with guns, and that was successfully achieved. I then think you had your own civil war, which obviously had a huge amount of gun violence, and I think as a result of that, guns became part of a family home in many cases, and people believe that their Second Amendment rights give them the right to continue to basically arm themselves to the teeth if they want to. Now, my argument is that at some point there's got to be a better application of reasonable restrictions. I repeat, I'm not going to take anybody's gun away. It's not about confiscation. Nor do I think when you have 300 million guns in circulation, you can't expect a family that wants a firearm, a handgun, to defend their family from having one. I respect that. That is what I think would be what the founding fathers intended when they wrote originally about this. But let's face facts. The Second Amendment's already an amendment, right? The original Constitution wasn't perfect. That's why there were so many amendments. To me, it is so vague, the wording of the Second Amendment, and can be so interpreted in different ways.
Only if you want to twist it around.
Either way. Way. You can either believe, as I believe...
It was written simply, as I see it.
Then why was the interpretation... If it was so simple, why was the interpretation until the mid-'80s of this recent century... Why, for 170-odd years, was it interpreted to mean an individual's right to bear arms as part of a well-regulated militia?
Because people
why is it now just an individual?
Because people weren't trying to take guns from people up until pretty recently.
What is a well-regulated militia, though? What is it?
A well-regulated militia is, here's what it is, and especially back when it was written.
Yeah.
If you have your townspeople... People in your town, you want them to be armed so that if they have to rally up a militia to fight some type of
but they were a trained private local militia, right?
No, they were the townspeople.
Right,
they were the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker.
But they are trained to use the firearms. They work as a militia.
They work as a militia.
Right.
But the militia,
they're not individuals.
The militia of that day was just the people in town and their weapons.
Who is regulating?
Being called together.
Now that it's become an individual militia of individuals living in their homes with individual firearms, who's regulating them?
It would be the militia itself.
Who? There is no militia regulating you, right?
No.
You've got nobody regulating your use of firearms.
No, because we haven't rallied a militia together yet.
Right.
There's no need for one yet.
So if you believe that the founding fathers intended you to have a gun as part of a well-regulated militia, I ask you again, where is that militia and where are they regulating you?
There isn't one now.
Right.
The amendment says that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, so that if we need to put together a militia, we already have the weaponry. That's how the amendment is interpreted.
But that's not how it was interpreted for 170 years.
It says a well-regulated militia.
The problem
being
with it
necessary
is,
a free state.
This is where you're wrong.
The right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right.
It means...
But there is a comma in the middle of a sentence, which means you can take it either way. And the Supreme Court in 2008 or 9 decided that it actually didn't mean what it had been interpreted to mean for 170 years. It actually meant an individual's right to bear arms, no longer as part of a well-regulated militia. But it's not whatever it is. It's a hugely important point. If you believe, as I do, that the NRA hijacked the meaning of the Second Amendment to sell guns, then you've got to debate whether the interpretation the Supreme Court affirmed in the late 2000s is correct.
Why would you think the Founding Fathers, knowing that there is an army, there's a standing U.S. Army, why would they say, well, you have to be in a militia in order to have weapons?
Because America, as you know, is a very big country.
Yeah.
So the idea of the standing army being able to get to some of the out places of America within weeks would have been unthinkable.
You don't think the Founding Fathers...
Now we can drop a bomb or a drone anywhere in America in a matter of minutes, right?
Yeah.
So the need to have a local militia to take on the British if we reinvade has gone. You also have, let me remind you, 5,000 nuclear warheads as a military firepower. America has half the world's military firepower at its disposal.
Right.
You don't have to worry about the British coming. You haven't got to worry about anybody coming. And you've got to worry even less about tyranny from your own government. Because let me explain to you, if they do come for you, your government, they've got 5,000 nukes. They're going to win. A few AR-15s is not going to succeed.
It's not
so
about
the tenets of the argument are ridiculous.
No, it's not. Because it's not about winning or losing. It's about a government having to kill its own people because they're armed with AR-15s instead of having nothing.
You're missing my point.
No, you're missing my point. No. Having no weaponry
and just doing it with a swipe of a pen. How are you going to defend yourselves against nukes?
You don't. If the United States has to start nuking its own people, I think it's over, Piers.
But I'm assuming,
I think the country's done.
I'm assuming
if that gets to that point.
Well, I would say it's fairly done if they turn tyrannical. So it's a question of how they execute the tyranny.
But if they have to take a single American life based on the fact that they want a tyrannical leadership over Americans, then they have to fight people with AR-15s, as opposed to just writing something with a pen
but they wouldn't know.
Not having any resistance whatsoever. If the US government wanted to turn
tyrannical, it would use all the firepower it had, which is nuclear weapons.
Like I said, and then the government's over. It's done.
Piers has to go. We're not trying to interrupt. No, it's for CNN.
Your people are freaking out.
It's for CNN. They're saying you have to go.
I've got that. But let me decide. I think this is a good debate. I wish this debate happened more often. Debate. I think it's a good, important debate. I'm not trying to patronize people. I'm not trying to tell you how to lead your lives. I just want, in the end, to see fewer Americans get hit by gunfire and die from gunfire. I suspect we all agree with that. What we're debating is how you best achieve it.
Exactly.
Piers' book is called Shooting Straight. We didn't plug this properly. Guns, Gays, God, and George Clooney.
We didn't even get to talk about the gays.
I know. I would love to, or at least demonstrate. Piers looks very fucking handsome on the cover. And, I enjoyed this very much.
I really like this a lot.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Bravo to both participants. Bravo.
It was a good debate.
And you get a lot of Twitter haters, man.
I love trolls.
You love them?
Well, especially when they are bad spellers. I like to correct them.
Yeah.
They say you're a moron and they spell it wrong, and it's like, great.
Oh, the your thing is very...
Well, they forget to put the hyphen between more and on.
Exactly.
You staying at CNN? We've heard the rumors.
Yeah, no, I'm contracted at CNN until next September, which will take me up to 4 years, and I'm going to start talking to them in the next few months about the future. I love CNN. To me, it's one of the great news brands of the world. As you read the book, it's in diary format. I've been at the center of some of the biggest news stories in history, whether it's, the mass shootings that you've had, the death death of Osama bin Laden, the Japanese earthquake, the Arab Spring uprisings. It's a thrilling place to be when big news breaks. And I've also had the great honor of interviewing some of the most important people in the world, whether it's, the Iranian president, Ahmadinejad, or Prime Minister Netanyahu, or the Dalai Lama, whoever it may be, Bill Clinton. You feel like at CNN, you're at the center of all the big stuff. And that's where I've always liked to be.
All right, Piers.
Come back and see us, will you?
Anytime, guys.
Going to read this.
I've enjoyed it. Important debate.
Well, what happened? You don't want him back?
No. I didn't say
you gave me a look like, what? You invite him back? Thanks, Piers.
Guys, I appreciate the time. Seriously.
Thank you very
much.
Piers Morgan, everyone.
The Opie and Anthony Show on Sirius XM. All right, well, that sucked. To hear the Opie and Anthony Show 5 days a week live on satellite radio, online on your phone or tablet, or even on demand, go to SiriusXM.com. Also, interact with the Opie and Anthony Show on Twitter, @Opie Radio, @Anthony Cumia, and @Jim Norton.